Hello, my lovelies. That was a really quick intro. Oh, my stars. Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wilde, and welcome to the Spaces Between. I hope you guys are doing just fantabulous on this Halloween day. So, yes, it is. Um, it is a fantastic day, actually. It's a happy Halloween. So, yes, it is actually a happy Halloween. And All Hallows Eve and Day of the Dead and all of the things for those of you who do the things. hmm And yeah, um, I was actually expecting a little bit more time so I could do like three more steps, and then suddenly I'm like, here I am. So, yes, ooh, that's quick. Um, it's not a bad thing though. It really isn't. It was just like startling. That's all. And yeah. So I normally am going to be trying in a normal world to be live on Thursdays rather than on Fridays. But with it being Halloween today, I figured, what, maybe today is the right day. And I should have done something yesterday. And you're right. Absolutely right. Why didn't I do anything yesterday? What did I do yesterday? You know what? I've slept since then, so I don't know. I don't know. I couldn't even tell you, to be honest, what I've been doing. Surviving from one day to the next. My life is a little chaotic and hectic. Not that that's any excuse for anything, but that is just kind of the way of it. Um, you would think, you really would think that at some point I would learn how to be a grown up and do things. Someday. Yeah. Um, we'll just leave it at that someday. Because someday, yeah, I will be there. I promise. So, what am I doing? So, within the veil, because yes, we are there. There's a lot going on in the world. I don't know if you guys are feeling the energy or the shifts or anything like that. And it's just, oh, today is feeling a little heavy, I have to say. And I am, it's not like this deep morass or weight, although it is. It's yeah, no, it is actually. Hello, Lucky. How's it going? Um, because it is feeling kind of weighty, um, and it's yeah, it is just weighty. I don't. It's like a pressure. I don't know if it's just a pressure. It and that I've noticed. I think even some of the people around me are feeling it also in reality. Um, the um, like so, I'm a substitute teacher in the local school district, and generally, I'm K-12. I don't have a problem with age groups or anything like that, and I will sub in special needs and all of the things, and it's good, right? I really don't have a problem with the other with all the ages, right? It's good, and it's an adventure, and I enjoy it. I really do, actually. And with that, um, it's been interesting because there have been times when the different kiddos really feel as if they're on a cusp. of something. And it's, I'm sorry about the noise. My home is chaos also. That does not help. We had an adventure. We decided to change cabinets and do some kitchen change. We'll get to it, I promise. Yeah, because that's an entirely different adventure. Some people should never be allowed to enter a Home Depot store or a Lowe's or look at Pinterest or anything like that when it comes to home remodel. And that's just all there is to it. Anyways, so, but yeah, the people around me seem to be feeling that same pressure, that same change, that drive to do something different or be more observant or something. And it is it's noticeable. And I don't want to say, oh, it's all Three Eye Atlas, or it's because, the polls are extraordinarily off center and they're listing. If you want to know more information, you have the tools at your fingertips if you're watching me online. Seriously. For all of the things. And I'm not doing your homework for you. And so there's a lot of stuff out there. The energy is just, is there. Plus seasonal changes. The veil is quite thin right now. And I can feel it. And I'm sure many others out there can feel it. There's a lot of folks out there who probably deny feeling it and they don't want to feel it. I know that I have been packing out extra rocks in my pockets just because those are extra protections for me. I've been wearing extra stones, jewelries, etc. The extra rocks sometimes are to help me feel grounded. Sometimes you never know when you might need to chuck a rock at someone, because sometimes you do. Trust me on this one. So, yeah. Tonight I will be having a little bitty fire because it is, well, hello, Gemini. It is, it's Halloween. Kids are going to trick or treat. We don't get many of them here, honestly. We really don't. A lot of people are moving to the trunk or treats. And, in a way, I'm pretty okay with it because it is up here in North Idaho. It can get kind of chilly towards the evening and later at night. And there's a lot of littles out there that should not be out running amok. And it's just, in many ways, it feels like we should, protect them a little bit more. I remember trick-or-treating in sleet and freezing rain and either freezing my ever-living arse off or having a costume where I was able to have multiple layers or, hide into things. Like I was a book one year, a bookworm. And so it was a couple of boxes stacked together and glued or taped together and then wrapped in brown paper. And then we drew a book cover on the front. And then there's holes cut through the middle. And then I had my head out the top and my arms out the sides and then my feet out the bottom. And then I had a hat. And then my face was painted brown, so I looked like an earthworm instead of green, which is kind of funny now in retrospect, because most people assume a bookworm would be green instead of brown. And I had gloves on, which kept my fingers warm, and then the big stocking cap. And you remember those big sunglasses, right? I popped the lenses out so I could see, and I had the big glasses on. But it was awesome because trick or treat, they give me the candy, but I kept my bag inside my boxes, right? And so I just pulled my arms inside the boxes, and I kept myself warm that way. It was fantastic. That same year, my younger sister, was a Christmas present. And I don't remember what my baby sister was. I think she was a fairy or princess or something like that, which she often was because that was just, but, stuff like that, because you could bundle up on the inside and stay warm. So that's what we did, right? But then we're Gen Xers and we figured it out. And That was back when, you know, latex and glue and paint and masks that you could hardly see through were common. So yeah, it was a long time ago. Nowadays, yeah, the sky's the limit, and half the costumes out there look like they're done by professional artists, and oh my goodness, it's very bizarre. So, anyways, but why? Why do we wear costumes? Well, um, honestly, we wear costumes to scare off the demons. Um, that's where the history is, which is fascinating all by itself. And if you look at the costumes, the historical pictures or the photos or drawing or artist renderings, if you will, of the historical costumes for Halloween, some of those are downright scary. I mean, they are horrible, and they are more frightening actually than any kind of demon I would ever. I ooh, just like pictures of the Easter Bunny from like 70, 80 years ago. Those are scary. Yeah. Um, if you've seen Donnie Darko, that's what the Easter Bunny used to look like. I'm serious. So, yes. So, why are we here? Living in the veil, because that's where we are. And a lot of what is happening now in contemporary times is we're talking about ancestor worship or ancestor veneration, if you will. And so, what is ancestor veneration? Well, um, loosely translated, honestly, it is veneration, or it's involving the respect and remembrance of the dead or our loved ones after their passing. And sometimes it is not just our loved ones, but also those that we have a lot of respect or honor for. Like for some would be the saints, if you will. Um, just don't mind him. He doesn't know what he's saying. Uh, little dog has a lot of opinions. So the ancestor veneration or ancestor worship has been around for a long time, and it varies significantly across all societies. All societies, and generally it embodies the belief that the deceased continue to exist in some form, and it can influence the acts of the living or be there to protect the living in some way. And so those acts of veneration can include maintaining the grave sites, offering food, or seeking guidance from the departed. And so terms like ancestor veneration or ancestor worship or are often used interchangeably. They do have separate meanings. All right. So ancestor or veneration typically focuses on honoring deceased relatives and accepting them as intermediaries rather than deities. And ancestor worship generally involves more of a formal worship practice, if you will. So, in many cultures, including those in like Asia, Africa, Europe, and parts of the Americas, have rituals that reflect both the beliefs about the dead's roles in the afterlife and the connections to the living. So there's like events like Dia de los Muertos in Mexico, and then Memorial Day even here in the U.S. Those are different ways to honor the deceased. And then veneration of the dead often serves as a really significant expression of cultural heritage, memory, and family bonds, which highlights the just this huge connection between the living and our ancestors, which is hugely important, and keeping that link between our present and our past. So, um, generally, the veneration of the dead is that reflection of love, okay, of our loved ones after their death. And often it is just the family members, right? But it can also be close friends, and like family, friends, that kind of thing. And it can encompass the belief that departed, have been here. They impacted our lives in life, and they can impact our lives in death also. And so maybe it's putting flowers at our grave sites, or and then asking for favors. It's like, hey, like I remember going with my grandparents to clean the grave sites of our family members, and leaving flowers there, and then my grandparents would pray, and they wouldn't necessarily ask for those that have passed for guidance necessarily, but they'd be, because they're very, very strict Christians, they'd be asking God to Yahweh God to protect loved ones and such while we were there. And to me, the implication often was, asking them to the departed to also kind of watch over the loved ones, if you will. Um, so kind of treated them like messengers or spiritual guides. Um, and so they weren't considered deities, if you will, but they were, treated with some veneration, and the graves are treated with respect, and the grave sites with honor, which I think is a purposeful thing, and speaks to me also. It was more like they were like a messenger space, a place to go and reflect. And so it wasn't so much an ancestor worship, it's just more like a place to venerate, a place of safety where my grandparents could go and commune, feel closer to God, if you will, or Yahweh. And so not all cultures, of course, practice that veneration in the same way. They really don't. So some feel that once the dead were once human, they might understand human needs better than God, which I can kind of understand. So some feel that they might be able to provide a better intervention in people's lives, which I can kind of understand, because Yahweh or the gods. So speaking specifically to the gods is, or Christian gods would be like I so busy because within Christianity, they feel that there's one God. Well, that one God, Yahweh, would be really, really busy doing all of the things all of the time. They might need someone to step in and do something, step in and do some things, right? Um, so, um, I mean, that's kind of a big deal because they're really, really busy, right? So, and when like anthropologists or archaeologists are going and inspecting sites and such, and I'm going a little bit of history here, historically they feel that, our anthropologists specifically feel that ancestor veneration was probably one of the first steps of spiritual belief, maybe. Well, they do. I walked a different path, so that's okay. But ancestral veneration is old. Like, it's been around as long as the hills have been around, kind of thing. So it's old, 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 right? And that and I have links here for some articles that I'll put in the notes, of course. And the speculation, of course, is that ancestor veneration is like one of the earliest forms of animism, and dates like back to the Paleolithic era. All right, so let's see. Lucky says honoring your antecedents and ancients, also honors your genome, as our DNA comes from them, and honoring them speaks also to the genetic code. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's kind of funny. One of the comments in the article says, "Yeah, who wouldn't want an army of the dead, at your disposal?" Because yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you want an army of the dead to help you out? And honestly, if you're speaking to your ancestors, wouldn't they have the most likely or most interest in your successes? I mean, really, truly. I mean, wouldn't they? I mean, they've been part of your life, or they're part of your history. They should be part of your future. So why honor your ancestors, right? Well, yeah, they're very very interested in your future, 100%. Um, because well, your ancestors care about you, and they're less harassed with other people's prayers or petitions, especially compared to the deities, right? The divine. And they can basically just help you with stuff. They can give you the little nudge, the little poke, kick in the butt kind of a thing. Um, and since they're less trafficked, if you will, than other spirits or deities or the divine, and less poked at than some of the other like named spirits, if you will, they're going to be less bothered. So they will have more time and or more attention, say attention span, if you will. And so they're more likely to respond and be able to help. And so, since often our ancestors, especially today, our ancestors, if you look back, they valued community, and often they valued family and they valued connection. So, yes, they have a vested interest in you and your family. So, yes, they have a vested interest in you, their descendant. So, honoring the dead is often a form of luck magic all by itself. You're feeding into that luck magic. So, if you are honoring your ancestors, you're honoring that family luck, if you will. And if I remember and focus on honoring my own personal ancestors and just saying, remembering to say thank you and remembering them, I feel like my life is going a little bit more smoothly because I know that they are there for me. I feel a little bit more backed up. Now, this particular article here has a little bit about ancestral trauma because you know what? It doesn't really matter what your genealogy is. There's going to be some ancestral trauma in there because all of us at some point have had something go sideways in our ancestral lines because you know what, that's just what's happened because of things. We'll just leave it at things. Okay, things and stuff is kind of one of my lines. And because of that, people sometimes don't want to engage in ancestral veneration, and I get it, especially here in the US. There is a lot of people out there that have issues with some of their ancestors and some of the things that they have done. And I get it. I get it. You don't like it. Totally understand. And you know what? That's fine. You don't have to honor those people. And, that's fine. You have to do what feels right for you because sometimes that trauma and that abuse and those things are not something you want to have around you, and you have to do what's best for you. Because you know what? Um, at some point, all of our ancestors have done something that, somewhere in our genealogy, our ancestors have done something that we wouldn't have engaged in because we would not have made that conscious choice. Because we as humans would have made a different choice, right? Culturally, that's not the way we would have made a right turn instead of a left turn or left turn instead of a right turn because that's just who we are, right? However, culturally, societally, whatever choice they made at the time perhaps it was the right choice. And, some of it, shame on us for judging people from our past by today's societal norms, because we shouldn't. Because what was 100% acceptable 1,000 years ago probably isn't acceptable today, because there is some of that. So you can always call upon the elevated dead instead of just all of them. That way, you're not including the abusive idiots, if you will, that don't deserve your time and attention, you know, because you don't want those folks. You don't want to have to deal with those that have made the poor choices. So if you call upon the elevated dead or the ones that have made the right choices, yeah, just say the elevated dead. That might be the better way to put it. Instead of saying ancestors, hear my plea, say elevated ancestors, hear my plea. So that would be a way to adjust the phrasing. That way you're not getting those that have just made the poor choices, Now, if you don't know the names of your ancestors, because a lot of us don't, and we can't all trace our genealogy back to, the, circa 1200 BCE, right? Just, again, that elevated ancestors. Is it a label? Yes, but it's also an all-encompassing label. And it also keeps that energy, that positive energy, focused and coming to you rather than pulling from the chaotic energy. Now, as someone who is just a practicing witch and that pulls from all of the energy, sometimes it's good to make sure you're focusing the correct energy for a particular project or working, because sometimes you want to make sure you are pulling a single type of energy for a certain thing rather than all of the energy, because not all of the energy is the right energy, if that makes sense. I feel magic is energy, energy is magic, and just like licking a 9-volt battery, sometimes it's a dead battery and sometimes it's a live battery. It's just energy, It's two sides to the same coin. It's just energy. It's your intent and the way you use that energy that is. Sometimes you put the battery in the device, it's a light flashlight. Sometimes it's a taser. It's up to you as to which device you're using the energy in. So with the veneration, there's, where is it? Well, it's kind of all over the place, really, truly. But also, as that line between veneration and worship is pretty gray. So looking at the more of the uh, as more of the worship, it's the honoring and respecting of the deceased family members and loved ones, that influence the living. There's often rituals and ceremonies like cleaning the grave sites. So with my daughter's 4-H group, one of the works that they do, if you will, because they have to do some sort of volunteer work as a group, and one of those things is they go through and clean one of the graveyards just before Memorial Day. And that's what they do. They go through, there's weed whacking and mowing and raking and trimming back trees and brushes or shrubs and cleaning up the old and dead flowers and plants and everything, and helping to prepare it for Memorial Day, which I think is fantastic. Um, Adopting a cemetery, I think, is just one of those awesome things. And I don't know why it was picked as the project to do, but yes, I think it's awesome. I fully endorse it. So that is, adopting a cemetery if you don't have one that your ancestors go to, because I know a lot of families have spread out and maybe you don't have anybody local that is in a local cemetery, which I understand. So sometimes maybe the cemetery that's local, if you talk to someone who manages it, you can ask, is there anyone here? Are there any grave sites here that aren't visited regularly or that could be maintained? And adopt some that aren't maintained, like the grave of the forgotten soldier, or the nameless soldier, I should say. You know, there's sites like that all over, or the grave sites of those that are so old that the stones are becoming recessed into the ground, and it's hard to identify them anymore because they're just being lost to time. Go through and maintain them. I think that's fantastic. And just connecting with those folks, even if they're not your personal people, it's that practice of veneration and connecting with the dead in general and honoring the dead. So you can often have that same peace and that same practice there at a cemetery, even if it's not your own folks. And by doing that, that's just a way of connecting, right? So in Korea, for instance, they have a jesa, which is a lighting of candles. They provide offering, food and drinks, and placing gifts on graves. And other traditions do this very same thing worldwide. You can see it in Mexico, for instance, like Day of the Dead. And I'll talk about that too. And so there's all sorts of rituals and ceremonies that you can do. You can make up your own. There's existing rituals and ceremonies that do something similar. A lot of altars, a lot of households have altars dedicated to their ancestors. There's a lot of clan temples, if you will, that have altars that are dedicated to ancestors, that can be dedicated to, and also have symbolic items. So I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Coco. It's a little cartoon movie. It's about a boy who his family makes shoes, but he feels like he has to play music, and he thinks he's descended from this guitar player, and he has to be in this competition or something on Day of the Dead, and he goes to steal the guitar so he can play because his family destroyed his guitar, and it drops him into the spirit world. And the whole movie is about how he goes from the spirit world to getting back into the living world, because he has to have his family's blessing, and his mother's side of the family won't give him their blessing because they want him to stop playing music, because they feel that is the reason why their whole family had problems. And so he tries to get his father's blessing because he thought his father was this big famous person. And lo and behold, there's more to it. Not going to go into it because I don't want to spoil it. And it's actually kind of a cute movie. But part of it is, in order to remember the dead, the family in their home, they had this altar to remember their loved ones. They all needed a picture or a token to remember their family. And so it was really cool because that token, everybody needed it. And one of those things that he had to go, or he was trying to do, is to make sure he had a token of one of the people to take back with him so he would be able to remember them. And it was, I don't know, it's interesting. And if they didn't have that token, they would fade from the afterlife, and that was it. They were done. And you know what? It was just an interesting take. It was an interesting take on the Day of the Dead and their belief system. So I don't know. It was really interesting. Cute movie. Interesting interpretation. Um, so many practitioners believe that ancestors absolutely influence the lives of the living and can be beseeched for aid or even to abolish sins. I don't know about abolishing sins, but helping to seek forgiveness, yes, I can see that. And as it's tied to family lineage, heritage, and a sense of moral duty, similar to Confucianism and the Confucian philosophy, there's a lot of heritage involved with some of those beliefs, especially if you think of some of the Eastern traditions. Wider cultural significance, so like ancestor veneration, can often be an integral part of a community's ecological system. Like with the Sambaga people of Melanesia, where sacrifices to the ancestors help regulate the pig population. So that's one place where the veneration of the ancestors is very, very important to the population of some of the local animals, even because if they didn't have that veneration, how would it impact the whole ecological and environment? Talk about a real different twist, right? And then the integration with the other faiths. Ancestor worship is common in parts of Asia, Africa, and the Pacific, and even families who practice religions like Christianity or Islam, who often see no conflict with honoring their ancestors, like my grandmothers and my grandparents going and honoring their relatives and cleaning up the grave sites, which honestly, they just saw that as an honor thing, right? And then those practices can range from focusing on recent ancestors, like those who've recently passed, to a broader reverence for those who played a significant role in an individual's life or those who passed like many, many years ago. So I have on one of our walls pictures and photographs of not only those in our family now, but family that have impacted our so current generation, so children, grandchildren, children, ourselves, so like me and mine, and then in my siblings, so nieces and nephews also, and then my parents and siblings, and so aunts and uncles, and then my grandparents who have passed on and their generation, and then their parents, and then so that'd be my great grandparents and then my great greats, and that's as far back as I have on my walls because I only have so much space, right? But if I had a little more room, I'd be willing to have a little more stuff, right? But it does take a little bit more room to have all those photographs on the wall, right? So some of it is in here in my heart, and just having the photos I have on my wall is important to me because every time I look at those photographs, I'm reminded of my family tree and the impact that they have for me personally, and then in communicating with like mini-me and my son and any of the grandkids and stuff, and communicating with them, this is the family tree and this is who came before you. That's where that is, and that's been awesome. And that's been kind of a huge connection, so and being able to call on the ancestors, I think is huge because they do have a vested interest in you. And I have often, spoken to especially my grandmother, because she was the matriarch of our family. And and there's been a few times where it's like, ugh, I don't know if I'm on the right path. Am I doing the right thing? And then later I'll dream about her or something that she said, and she'll come out in a dream or something, and I'll feel like, yes, she has. And it's, it just, it feels comforting and good, if you will. And that ability to connect with her has been just good, knowing that she is there and capable of giving me a nudge occasionally. And even on this particular spiritual path that I'm on, as an omnitheist, I've wondered, is this something that she would be okay with because she was such a devout Christian, or would she be totally freaked out because, oh my stars, she really, really walked that narrow path. And and you know what? After, holy cow, if I stop and think back, um, when I first, that whole priestesshood mantle, when I first wore it, that was one of those things that I had as a doubt, if you will. And or a doubt or a concern. And I had a dream that night, and man, she really, really gave me a comforting dream that night. And I felt like it was an okay thing. I felt very welcomed by her, and like she understood that it was my path, and my footsteps needed to go in a different direction. And it was just really awesome because I felt like I was being given this big ethereal hug by my grandmother, in my dreams. But it was okay. And it was fantastic because how often do we get that? And I didn't have that acceptance sometimes in real life from my family, which was frustrating, but that's another story for another time. And it was just, it felt good. I don't know how else to put it. It was like putting on a fuzzy sweater when you're cold, or warm dry socks when your feet are cold and wet. That like, feeling. I don't know how to put it other than that. So yeah. And sometimes that's exactly what it's supposed to feel like. That's what it's supposed to be. And having that ability to connect with your ancestors is huge, and it's important. So yeah. Um, so yeah, moving on. Uh, there's other celebratory things that are happening right about now. I don't know if you guys have heard about it, but there's like All Saints Day. All Saints Day is more of a Christian holiday that happens right about now, because Christianity often is not comfortable with the celebration of Halloween because it came across as a very pagan and potentially evil holiday, because it just does. And even though it isn't an evil day, it's just a pagan day. And you know what? That's okay. And pagans get to have their days too. Got it. So All Saints Day is celebrated November 1st, so that's tomorrow. And it's just a day that honors all of the saints, known and unknown, that have attained heaven. So it's a Catholic holy day of obligation that requires going to Mass. And the celebrations include going to Mass, honoring the saints, and visiting the graves of the deceased relatives on the following day. And then November 2nd is All Souls Day, which is a commemoration of all of the faithful departed, those who are baptized Christians, who are believed to be in purgatory because they died with the guilt of lesser sins on their souls. And that's observed on February or November 2nd. And so those are just two Christian holidays that happen around Halloween. And it kind of goes right there along with the, I guess, the Day of the Dead a little bit, and the Dia de los Muertos, because that's more of a complicated holiday, which it is and it isn't. So Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead, is a Mexican holiday that's celebrated from October 31st to November 2nd, and it's to honor and remember deceased loved ones. And it's fascinating, and it's a beautiful holiday. So beautiful. And excuse me. Hold on. If you have a chance to see Coco, I'm telling you, you should watch it. Just so you can see some of the color and some of the representation. I'm not saying it's historically accurate, because it's not, but it's a cute movie. So, with Day of the Dead, or Dia de los Muertos, it's a way to honor, remember deceased loved ones, yes. And families create these very, very colorful altars called ofrendas, with ancestors' favorite foods and drinks and photos, and to welcome their spirits home for a reunion. The celebration is joyous and festive, and it combines ancient indigenous rituals with Spanish traditions, featuring music, dancing, and decorated graves. And so November 1st and 2nd are a little different. So November 1st is Dia de los Inocentes, which is remembering deceased children specifically. And November 2nd is for the adults. Because sometimes, the loss of children hits differently. And that's why it's separated. So the ofrendas themselves are covered with like marigolds and candles, photographs, sugar skulls, and then food and drinks like pan de muerto, which is a sweet bread. And then off they go to visit the graves, like just like we would during Memorial Day. So families will go to visit the cemeteries, they'll clean and decorate the graves of the loved ones with flowers and candles also. And then they'll share stories at the gravesite and enjoy music together. So it's like a party atmosphere at the cemetery. And I think that's awesome. I really do, because it's treating death as just a part of life rather than as this world-ending thing, which is what it should be. And the symbolism is just the vibrant colors and the symbols. And the skeleton figure is La Catrina, to represent that death is just a natural part of life, and that everyone is equal in the end. Because underneath, no matter what color we are, no matter what size we are, no matter who we are in life, in the end, we're just bones underneath. That's all we are. No matter what happens in life, in the end, we're all the same, And so some of the origins of Dia de los Muertos comes from some of the Aztec traditions, and those evolved after the Spanish came. And with the Spanish came Catholic traditions like All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day, and those kind of blended together and became this amalgamation, and became Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos. And it's just a joyful, sometimes humorous, but celebration of life that focuses on remembering life rather than mourning. And there's parades and dancing and face painting and just It's a joyous, joyous thing. Is it macabre? Sure, maybe, yeah, a little. Um, but you know what? It's a happy thing, and so for me, I've always felt that death um, is just a doorway. You know, we go from this life to the next life, and that's or the next thing, if you will, and that's what it is. Really, truly, that's who we are. That's what we do, and we go from here to there. And in order to get from here to there, we have to go through the doorway of death. And the only way we can get through that doorway is to actually die. Is that a little sucky sometimes? Yeah, sure, it is. And unfortunately, we leave behind people because they can't come with us. And it sucks for the people we leave behind because they're going to miss us. And for those that go before us, we will miss them. That's the sad part is we miss those that leave us behind, right? That's sad. But I guess I don't fear death. I don't fear what's going to be on the other side of the door. I don't fear that part of the adventure. And I don't, why should I? Why should we? You know, regardless of your spiritual path, that's what's next. You know, it's like the people who fight aging all the time, and they do this anti-aging cream or that anti-aging cream, or do this process or that process to, take away the fine lines and wrinkles, or get their face stretched, take away the eyebrows. And um, I like being able to move my eyebrows, the Botox and all the things. And you know what? I don't know, not my jam. Just embrace the horror. We're all going to get old eventually. The only way to get out of growing old is to die early. And I like the adventure. I'm not quite ready to go yet, so I'm going to stay here for a while, thanks. And that's just all there is to it. So while I'm here, I'm going to talk about my things and do my stuff and be the best person I can be and connect with as many people as I can, which I'm kind of glad I can do that here, and meet some folks and experience life, because isn't that what we're supposed to do? Experience life, do stuff. Why be stagnant? I mean, that's boring. And I'm not ready for that. Not at all. Because yeah, that's boring, man. I would rather I'd rather experience things. And so, while we're here in the Vale, honor your ancestors. Have the dumb tea, or meal, which I will probably do on Sunday with Mini Me, and I've got a project to do tomorrow with Mr. Don, and that'll be fun. And it's just every day it's do something different and experience life. Look for the next adventure around the corner. Step through the doorway. Journal about it. Find something new. And if you don't like what you're doing, don't like where you're at, well, guess what, kids? You're not a tree. You can move. And even then, some of those trees still pick up and move. So figure it out. If you're not finding your joy and happiness where you're at, maybe it's time to figure out where your joy and happiness is so you can get there. And if you don't know where it is, maybe it's time to talk to your ancestors and find out where it is, because they want what's best for you. They want to know why you're doing what you're doing and where you're at. and why you're not doing something to make yourself happy. Because if you're not making yourself happy, nobody else can. Seriously. And got to tell you, kids, you're not going to be happy and miserable and successful. So it's time to make those changes to do what you got to do. It sucks and it's going to require work. I'm speaking to the choir here. That's why I have an image of myself right here that I'm talking to. So yeah, we're in the veil. The veil is thin right now. So sometimes today's the day maybe to ask your elevated ancestors what it is you need to do to be successful. What's the next step? What is it that you need to do? Because if you want to go from point A to point B and skip 98, 99, and 100 to get there, what are you going to do? So, I guess in many respects, people think of Halloween and Day of the Dead, and the veil is this scary, scary place. And, I had kind of started, doing research and such with this potential thought that Day of the Dead would be a scary, scary place and that kind of a thing. But you know what? It just really isn't for me. It really, truly isn't. So Halloween's one of my favorite holidays. This is my favorite time of year. This is where I find my greatest joy. And I am probably going to go make donuts right after I finish cleaning the kitchen so I can get it all messy again. So I hope you guys have a fantastic Halloween and a safe weekend. Watch out for the crazies out there, because you know what? The veil is thin and they're peeking through. And don't forget to talk to your ancestors. They're looking out for you. So merry meet and merry part and merry meet again. If you want to talk to me, send me an email. It's wildpaisley@gmail.com. This is the spaces between, because that's Hey, you guys.